Ketter at the Cabin presents BOC with Ketter. Fly fishing, stories, connection. Now pour yourself a drink. This episode is in partnership with Trout Routes. Scan the QR code and use code KetterCabin20 for 20% off your membership. Now, to the episode. All right, welcome back to another episode of BOC with Ketter. We are in season 2. We're moving right through May. Have another awesome guest joining me today. I'm going to go ahead and kick it on over. He can introduce himself.
Hey, what's going on, Ketter? Appreciate you having me on. My name's Erik Johnsen. I'm the community marketing manager for Trout Routes, which is a mapping company and mapping tool, part of the Onyx family. I noticed you got the hunt hat on tonight. Excellent choice. It's been a lot of fun working with the folks there, and we've got some exciting things coming down the pipeline. But stoked to just kind of get into all things fly fishing and driftless related tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for taking the time to jump on. And I do got to ask, it is BOC with Ketter. Do you have a fun little beverage here this evening?
Oh, man, I'm just rocking a lemon fizzy water. This is, I think, Aldi special, but I got it in a fancy koozie, so that makes it count, right?
I like it. I'm kind of right on your boat here. I'm having a sparkling ice, black raspberry, zero sugar. I'm pretty sure this is from Aldi too.
I'm sure. Yeah, it looks familiar. Definitely.
Cheers, man. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Good to be here tonight.
Nothing wrong with a little fun water.
I was debating throwing a Diet Coke in the mix, but that's going to keep me up all night, and I don't need any more of that.
Yes, I was thinking about doing a bubbler. I don't know if you ever had bubblers. It's like a kind of a more cleaner energy drink, and I was like, if I have that at 8:00 tonight, we're in trouble.
Yeah, we're gonna go all night. It's the problem.
Yeah, so. We're just gonna keep talking. And, hey, the Wild are on too, so at least I could stay up and watch that.
Indeed, yeah. It's been a fun series. I mean, I caught the game the other night. I grew up playing hockey in the Twin Cities, so I'm a big fan, especially when playoffs roll around. And it's nice to see these series go, 5, 6, 7 games. I love that.
Yeah, it is. So, I'm nervous for tonight, but we'll see. We're up right now. Knock on wood.
We got some momentum. We'll see what happens.
Got a little momentum. That's awesome. So for those people who don't know you, who is Erik as an angler?
Yeah, 100%. I grew up fishing in the Driftless. I'm also, I'm in Southwest Wisconsin these days, so I am, just a stone's throw from some amazing trout water. But I grew up fishing in the Twin Cities, like most Minnesota kids do, with a big bobber and as much of a night crawler as you could cram on the hook as possible, and just catching bluegill and panfish off the dock. And it really wasn't until later in life that I got introduced to fly fishing. I spent some time out here with some family and realized the trout stream potential that I knew I was going to be coming out to quite a bit, and decided to give it a shot. And honestly, it took a number of years. I've told the story before, but I actually in part got into fly fishing as a way to connect with who I figured and ultimately became my future father-in-law, because I knew he grew up fly fishing with his dad, and took me ages to get him out on the stream with me. They were always tied up with farm chores and things like that, so when we would come out to visit, I'd hit the stream for a little while on my own and spend the first couple years getting tangled in willow branches and probably tying on the wrong bugs entirely, not having a clue. But eventually things came together, and I started figuring that out, and I did eventually get him out on a stream with me, and basically shoved a rod in his hand and said, "Tom, go fish that corner over there, and I'll be downstream if you need anything." And I just kind of watched over his shoulder as he started to connect with some little brownies, and it was really fun. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Since I've been into fly fishing, I've always been super interested in bug life and tying flies and figuring out stream conditions and how to read water, and really it's just, for me, it's always been and continues to be a great way to just get out in the wild and take some time off the screen and just enjoy it. And it's always been a lot of fun, and I'm thankful to now be in the Driftless proper and to have a lot of that right on my doorstep. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's huge. I love that a lot of people you talk to in the Midwest have that original story of, growing up, going out on the dock with your dad or whoever, your mom, your family, putting on the
Totally.
bobber, just going out after sunfish. Like everyone has that story, and it's just so cool to see how like you can take it further. You can get into fly fishing, or you can continue to work into that world. But it seems like everyone starts there, and it's just such a cool journey how people progress in the fishing
Yeah,
world.
and I will admit that I was not always the most patient angler, and so I would often get hung up on just wanting to snap on everything that I had in the tackle box because I, again, probably wasn't fishing those lures or baits properly, and was just trying to get anything and everything out in the water. But it's cool now. I've got a couple of young boys, and to see them picking it up in the same way is a lot of fun. We're right on the cusp of getting the fly cast down. They're still a little bit young, but they're definitely interested and so I take them out in the boat and the raft and stuff, and they do the same thing. They want to snap on the Rapala, they want to snap on the spinner, they all kinds of stuff, and then just see how it swims in the water and drag it by the boat, and sometimes they get lucky, and that's great. It's fun.
Sounds like you might have some streamer guys on your hands.
Oh man, 100%. It's only a matter of time.
That's awesome. It is fun to
Yeah,
watch and see that. So that is very cool.
yeah.
It's funny, I didn't even like growing up, I didn't even really enjoy fishing that much. I couldn't sit in a boat, I couldn't be patient, I was, like,
Yeah.
always antsy and squirrely, and then, I got introduced to fly fishing, and it's like, you don't have to stop if you don't want to, you can walk for
Hmm.
miles and miles and miles, and that's what really did it for me. I was like, "Oh, it's basically like hunting for fish, you can continue to go all day," and that's what clicked for me.
Hmm. Well, yeah, absolutely. I think I'm very much the same way. It's I had some family that would go out in the boat and watch bobbers and stuff like that, and I just never
Mhm,
could really get behind it. But once I started getting out on some of the creeks here, yeah, it's all about just continuing to explore and
mhm,
really one of the things that I found and that I continue to come back to is um it's like every time you go out on the water, there's a new puzzle that you're trying to solve, and you don't know what the picture is on the box. You don't really know um, how the pieces are going to fit together, but that's the process, and I really enjoy that aspect of it. Is you can take the things that you've learned and try and get a head start, but it almost feels like every time I'm getting out there, something's a little bit different, and that's the challenge, right? And it's always I've always really enjoyed that component of it, where it feels like you're trying to find the right water, you're trying to understand what bugs might be hatching, where the fish are going to be holding, all those things, and when you can get them to come together and get something on the end of the line, it's like it clicks, and it's like that reward, and um, it's great. It's just such an amazing experience, and um, I'm grateful to be able to do it as often as I get a chance to get out there.
yeah, absolutely. Do you recall, like, a moment where, like, fly fishing just, like, really, like, grabbed you, or was it, like, a gradual progression?
Oh man, I can think of a very specific fish. In fact, this was probably maybe the third year in, I guess, after I started to pick up a fly rod. So by that point, I had a better understanding of bugs and what flies to tie and some more just general understanding of fish behavior. But it must have been kind of a mid to late August evening, and I was fishing a spot, that I knew fairly well that I had been out to plenty of times. Um, and I saw some fish rising, and I was trying to like get the fly to drift in front of them, and I made a couple of adjustments, tied on like a medium hopper. It was peak hopper season too, so it was that's always fun, that top water eat. But I made the cast. It landed exactly where I wanted it to. I watched it float, and like I was just counting down the seconds. Like, all right, 3, 2, 1. Here's the fish, and then the fish came up, swallowed the thing, and I set the hook, and it was just like, yeah, that's it. Like we got it. And it was a decent brown. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was that all those things came together. I knew what fly to tie on. I mean, granted, it was hopper season, so just about any big foam bug probably would have worked, but it was the right size at least, or the right color, or whatever it was, and I made the right cast. I managed the drift, and everything just lined up, and it was like, all right, this is it. This is what we're doing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It always is that kinda, like, aha moment, I feel like, where it's like, "Oh, all the time I've put on the water, all the, YouTube
Hmm.
I've watched, all the people I've talked to, it all
Totally.
came together finally," and it's like, "Alright, this is fly fishing," and then the next day, you might be the opposite, where it's like, I can't do anything right.
Oh man, I've been back to that spot. I've made that cast dozens of times. I made the same drift. There's nothing there. I don't know. I'm like, maybe there was the only fish in that section, but that's all part of it, right? Is the trial and error and the just kind of sticking with it. And I think it's a great lesson just for other things in life to be persistent, and it's certainly requires plenty of that.
Yes, that's a very, very good call. And then I ask everyone who's got kind of driftless roots, this question. It's a very common question. I get a different answer every single time. But in your opinion, what makes the driftless so special?
Man, that's a great question. I mean, obviously, it's an absolutely beautiful part of the country. I like that it is and continues to be a bit of a hidden gem. If you're not from the upper Midwest, a lot of folks really aren't familiar, unless you're an angler. A lot of anglers certainly are aware, but it's kind of this like quiet, hidden little pocket of outdoor recreation that uh, it just has an awful lot to offer. I think one thing that also really stands out, and this I suppose goes for Wisconsin as a whole, but I think this area just has such a rich fishing culture, and there's such a priority put on public access, especially for fishing, that I've experienced the opposites, having had a chance to travel and fish different parts of the country, and it can get a bit contentious out there, depending on what kind of landowner rights are available to people, or what kind of limited public access might exist. But out here, it's very well known and encouraged for folks to get out and explore, and I really relish that sort of under current, I suppose, of the community and the kind of fishing access that we have out here. It's just not only is it absolutely beautiful, and there are just so many miles of opportunity, but everyone's always, I think, really encouraging and motivated to help people out, and um, I think that's great. I think I hope we hang on to that for as long as possible. It's such a cool kind of aspect of everything.
Yeah, I love that answer. I love that answer. I would agree 100%. I think back to some of my, stories and my times of fishing the driftless. And yes, the public access is incredible. And, if you do everything right, you go on the easements, keep your feet wet, keep yourself in the water. And like you know, the farmer might come right down and he's down there with his dogs or with his cows or with his, whatever he's doing. And it's always a good conversation for me. Like I've always had great experiences, hey, you catching any fish? What's working today? What's not working? And then you can hear some stories about how it was, 30 years ago down there. Like it's always such a
Yeah,
cool experience.
100%. I was just gonna say I had a chance to get out earlier this spring, and we were just getting out of the truck at a bridge, and a farmer and his wife come buzzing in on the side by side, and he was asking me those exact same questions. He wanted to know how the fishing was. We of course had just gotten there, so we didn't have a great answer for him, but it was just cool because he's been in the area for 50 years or more, and was telling us about how when he was younger he would go out and fish this corner, and was
Mhm.
kind of directing us to a couple of areas, but was just very, very curious and interested in how we were doing, and the things that we had experienced that morning so far, and I love that. I think that's really very much a part of that culture as well.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's one of the best parts of fishing and hunting culture is just hearing people's stories and hearing how
Yeah.
things have changed. And yeah, if you're doing things the right way, most people are always willing to help, always willing to
Hmm.
share, and it's very special. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So you've obviously, done some traveling, it sounds like. How has, the driftless shaped how you fish in other areas of the world, United States?
Yeah, for sure. What's interesting about the Driftless is, not only do we have tons of access and opportunity, but there's a lot of different kinds of water to fish out here. You've got some big rivers. I mean, we're not far from the Wisconsin River where we live. Not a ton of trout in Wisconsin, but, all those feeder creeks eventually dump into something a little bit bigger. And so you can get it into anything from tiny, 1 to 2 foot wide Spring Creek headwaters all the way down to big bass and muskie territory and things like that. And I think one thing that's really helped me is that diversity has allowed me to just experience a lot of different kinds of water and given me an opportunity to learn about how to read different kinds of water, no matter if they're those tiny trickles or it's the bigger moving water. So I think that's a big one. I think the other thing when it comes more to fly fishing is the driftless can also be quite technical. There are often a lot of rather specific hatches, or the trout might be keyed in on something pretty specific. And so it really does require that you pay attention and take a moment to kind of analyze and take in your surroundings. And certainly, think about things like your backcast and and other obstacles and things that you could get hung up on. And so that has certainly helped me not only become a better angler, but also to take those skills and experiences and kind of translate them when I'm fishing somewhere new, where I might not know what the bugs are exactly. I might not know exactly where the fish are holding, but I can start to pick apart that new environment. And I think that's always been helpful.
Have you found another region that's similar, or is it just such a unique place where it's like, nah, this doesn't even feel close?
I've had a chance to fish a little bit out in Pennsylvania, where I think the water characteristics are quite similar. I've certainly been out on some water out west where the biodiversity is very different, but the water behavior is quite similar. So if you find yourself on some of that smaller water, I think those techniques translate very, very closely. I think every region's got its own quirks and its own kind of foundational elements, but if you can cast to a tight window and you could tie it on a strong knot, I think you're pretty well along, just no matter where you're fishing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good advice. Yes, I would agree. I don't get out of the driftless too much, but hopefully, as my life progresses, I will. But yeah, I stick around in these parts, and yeah, it's
I mean,
it's
hey
it's
man, there's
definitely
nothing there's nothing wrong with that. There's so much water to be explored just here in this little corner that like you could spend a lifetime not fishing the same water twice and you'd still cover, a fraction of what's out there.
Oh, yeah, easily, easily. I do. I got a good question for you, and I feel like I might know the answer. But what is the biggest myth about the driftless?
Biggest myth, that we only have small trout. I think folks don't sometimes comprehend the level of technique that is often required, not only when it comes to fly selection, but also casting ability and finding a lane where you're trying to let a fly drift for a couple of feet before you got to reset. But we've got some sleeper spots out here where, like I said, all that. I mean, obviously everyone's familiar with on the pod, I'm sure, but how interconnected all these waterways are, and it gives trout an opportunity to hide and sneak away if they need to find some bigger water occasionally, and um, it's there are some big fish lurking around out here if you're willing to put in a little extra miles on them.
Yes, yes, that's exactly the answer I thought you would give. So I'm happy to hear that. That's most of the people I talk to say, yeah, there's a lot of big fish in the driftless. You just gotta work for it, and you gotta know what you're doing, and you gotta put in the time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. All right, I'm gonna switch it up a little bit on you, and we'll go into a little trout route topic here. So, what got you first connected to trout routes?
Yeah, man, I was in a drift boat on the Upper Mississippi with a couple of buddies of mine, and one of them was doing a little bit of marketing work for Trout Routes at the time. This was all the way back in 2022, and at that point, I was just getting out of about a decade's worth of career experience in the craft beer world in the Twin Cities, and looking to make a bit of a change. But certainly wasn't, leaning particularly hard into the outdoor space or even in fly fishing, but was just kind of taking a bit of a pause. And this buddy of mine said, "Hey, we're going to open up this role for outreach and partnerships. I think you should apply. It'd be a lot of fun, and you'd be great at it." Uh, and so I said, "Well, what the hell? I'll meet with the founder and see what's going on." And we hit it off. And a couple weeks later, I was joining the team with the first round of startup employees in a little garden level office up in Northeast. And it's the rest, I guess, is history. But yeah, like I said, it kind of fell in front of me, and I jumped at the opportunity because I knew it was going to be a great experience, even if it you know not knowing how long it might last. But it's been so rewarding to not only get a chance to work in an industry in a sport that I love very much, but to kind of pair that personal passion with that career is I think a rare opportunity for a lot of people. Um, and so I was excited at that opportunity again from the outset, and it's been really great so far.
That's awesome, that's awesome. Yeah, passion is everything. If you can find passion with your work and combine those 2 together, I mean, that's everything. Passion to me is how you drive pretty much everything in life. So
Yeah,
that's very,
absolutely.
very cool that you can find that connection. We gotta so breweries, were you working breweries, or what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I was working in the beer industry, man. It's I actually have or I had a little bit of family history there. My dad worked for Stroh's Brewing way back in the day, if you've ever heard of Stroh's. They had a brewing facility up in St. Paul, and so I was exposed to that industry for a long time. He eventually moved on into other food production and recipe and brand development, stuff like that. But I got into it because I started volunteering at a little microbrewery outside of the Twin Cities, and that turned into a full-time gig, working some production lines and helping to manage some production schedules and things like that. I did a bunch of home brewing myself when I was, just in and out of college. And so I had a chance to learn a bit more of that actual brew house side of things. But my focus was mostly on the cold side. So that was all things that happen once the beer, once your production has left the brew house and it starts to get into those fermentation tanks. I was helping basically from there all the way downstream through production. So I got to run canning lines and learned how kegs operate and all kinds of other production and operations management.
That's pretty cool. Could you still whip up a good beer at home these days?
Oh man, I'm a little rusty, but I'm sure it would come right back. Just like riding a bike. But that's something else that was always a lot of fun too, right? It's that recipe development. It can be as simple and straightforward, or as complicated as you want it to be. Very much like how fly fishing can be. You can get real in the weeds very quickly. Um, and I always enjoy, those kinds of things where you have the opportunity to continue to learn and expand and try new things. And so I always really got a kick out of that stuff. Um, and now that I think about it, I might have a couple of cases of homebrew like stashed somewhere that I've forgotten about that I should investigate.
There you go, that's awesome. Yeah, you might have to figure out where those are at and, get them out for a nice spring fishing trip.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome, that's awesome. So, I mean, I can kinda see where that is kinda similar to fly fishing where, yeah, you're kinda always experimenting and just kinda trying to tinker with stuff and find that right recipe, that
Hmm.
right fly, I could see that, I could see that.
Sure.
That's
Yeah,
awesome, that's
totally. I mean,
awesome.
I pivoted, right? When I learned how to fly fish, I got well down the rabbit hole when it comes to tying flies, and so I have done an awful lot of that. I'm starting to get back into doing a little bit of commercial tying, mostly on like the bigger predatory fish side of things. So big bucktail streamers and stuff like that. Um, but have been taking some of that and starting to apply it to some like micro versions of similar patterns for trout and experimenting a whole bunch already at this season with some new stuff and some new materials and new patterns and things like that. But
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's again, you can catch plenty of fish with a woolly bugger or a parachute Adams, or you can get as complicated and tie multi-articulated streamers with all kinds of feather and flash and whatever. So it's really up to you, but that's the fun of it, I think, and that's what makes me that's what keeps me coming back, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Did you like, when you got into fly fishing, did you immediately wanna start tying flies, or did that come later in the
I suppose I picked it up right away. Not so much because I thought that I needed to tie my own flies and that was the way to go, but it was because it was a way for me to connect with other anglers. I got to know a lot of folks at Men Provisions up in Minneapolis,
Yeah.
and they were a fantastic resource and continued to be great friends. And um, it was an excuse to go hang around the fly shop for a couple hours and pick their brains and see what else was going on the water and stuff like that. Um, but I just became fascinated with kind of the techniques and the skills behind it, and was always drawn to how you can transform these materials that if you see them laid out in front of you, they don't look like much, but you can do some pretty simple things that make them much more complex than they might otherwise be. And that kind of manipulation with those different materials and techniques I always thought was really cool. And so I've tied everything from, your traditional smaller dry fly nymph patterns, traditional patterns all the way through to, stacking deer hair and tying huge bass poppers and then crazy foot long articulated musky flies and stuff. So it's again, it's one of those things that you can make as simple or as complicated as you want. I think I often, maybe to a fault, err on the complicated side, but that's what I like about it is getting in the weeds and then having to work your way out of it, I suppose.
Sure. Sure. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I mean, I don't tie too much personally. It's something I need to incorporate into my life a little more. But yeah, I can't imagine like, yeah, tying on like a 22 zebra midge and then moving on to an articulated streamer. Like that's
Yeah.
just different worlds entirely. Like it's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I won't claim to be the best small fly tire out there. I can get it done in a pinch, but I do like perhaps some of the freedom that a larger fly might offer you. But it's the techniques that you learn tying those traditional patterns will continue to apply no matter what you're tying. So I think it's all very valuable.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a buddy who I fish with a lot and does a lot of tying. He exact same answer. He's like, yeah, some of those, basic traditional stuff, like learn those first and then build from them. And yeah, I could see where I could kind of translate
Mhm.
over time for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's just learning how to use the, really specific tools like a hackle pliers or,
Yeah.
a bodkin or other little specific things that really only have a use when you're trying to tie a fly.
Yeah.
But you learn how to hold material the right way. You learn how to measure, how a certain material will fit on the hook. And I mean, all of that's important no matter what kind of fly you're tying. This, understanding proportions, understanding how a material will behave in the water, it's all totally relevant no matter what you're doing.
That's sweet, that's sweet. Yeah, I need to incorporate that. I'm getting into well, I can say it now because 'cause it'll be out before this podcast, but I started, making my own fly rod, so that's
Yeah.
been a journey, and I really kinda wanna lean into that, and it's been so fun to just learn the components and understand
Mhm.
everything that goes into something, whatever
Yeah.
you're creating, it's just cool to know every single piece of something, so, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited to, kinda lean into that in my future, but I do need to tie some flies too.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. I haven't gotten into any rod building stuff, although I know it can be just as complicated and interesting and, just as much of a rabbit hole as tying flies. But we'll have to stay connected on that front. I'm
Yeah.
I'm trying, like, so my ideal fly rod right now, I think, is a 7.5 foot 6 weight, which doesn't
Oh,
really exist, like that's such a driftless specific application for me. It's something that can cast in tight windows and with limited room, but I want something that has a bit more of a punch that I can get some bigger flies out there. So we'll have to talk about that.
okay, I
Maybe
like
off
that.
camera.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. That's a great idea. I like that. That's awesome. So can you tell us a little bit more of like, what does it look like on the community marketing team? What does that look like day to day for you?
Yeah, 100%. So here at Trout Routes, I work with all of our external partners, and that means everything from coordinating our on-site events or when we show up at fly fishing shows and expos, to our relationships with NGOs. Think folks like Trout Unlimited or Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, um, as well as working with folks on kind of content and ambassador side. So if you see us on a YouTube video, if you see us on other social platforms, I'm helping to connect with all of those folks and get them plugged into the Trout Routes ecosystem. So it ends up being an awful lot of different kinds of things day to day, but I have the great fortune to be able to connect with people like me who are very passionate about fly fishing and love being outside and love getting out on the water. Um, and it's a lot of fun because it allows me to get a chance to experience what fishing communities are like well outside of the Midwest. So we of course work with people all over the country, and depending on where you are, your fishing techniques or the kind of water that you're on day to day is quite different than what we have here in the Driftless. And so I have an opportunity to get a sense of that, which is always very exciting. I think, one thing that I've certainly noticed now being kind of behind the curtain, on the industry side is a lot of that fishing marketing tends to focus on, bigger water or more expansive destination opportunities. But that doesn't mean that the fishing in your backyard isn't just as fun or as rewarding. And so it's always cool to be reminded of the different pockets across the country that have these amazing environments that people get out in and explore and love to death and help them tell those stories and things like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Is there a story that just like sticks out to you, like a connection story that's just like you'll never forget?
Oh man, I don't want to call anyone out for fear of leaving someone off the list that I don't think should be. I think what I will say is um I think for me, a lot of the time, fly fishing is a personal, moment. I don't tend to broadcast a ton of the time that I'm on the water necessarily. But I really enjoy it. I think it's such an amazing pursuit. I think it is good for your mental health. I think it is always great to be breathing in some fresh air and just letting your mind kind of unwind and escape from some of the other stress of life. And so the folks that I have been lucky to connect with all hands down share that passion and that sort of belief. Um, and I just feel really invigorated when I get a chance to connect with these people on the team, because every time I'm talking to somebody, I might not chat with them for a couple of weeks, but every time we reconnect, it's hearing about the things that they're excited about, and that gets me energized for the perhaps some of the more mundane things that I might be doing day to day. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's great. That's got to be such a good feeling. It's just having those connections come back and hear what
Hmm.
people are up to, in their fishing life, and maybe they
Hmm.
talk about other stuff in their life, and it's just to kind of have those connections just always flowing and have that common factor of fly fishing to
Yeah.
keep you connected is special. That's
Yeah.
community.
Yeah, man. That's what it's all about. So,
That's what it's all about.
I hope to keep bringing that energy into the actual trout routes work that we're doing. But, I'm like I said, I feel very fortunate to be in this position, and super excited for, we're already in kind of mid-May. So
Yeah.
the season's really kicking off, but we've got another exciting one coming at us, and I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Has trout routes changed the way you fly fish or like how you approach anything?
Yeah, I think you it's easy to get kind of stuck in your ways, and I've got a handful of spots on the docket that I know I can go catch some fish, and I don't have to think too hard about it. But one thing that has I think changed me, hopefully for the better, is given me some more confidence to get out and explore brand new areas. And it's not always when I'm traveling or when I'm fishing outside of the driftless. It certainly has helped me kind of get out of that comfort zone and try something new. And I think one of those reminders of perhaps the size of the fish or the number of fish that you're getting to hand is not the most important component. And it's always it can be just as rewarding to get out and just walk 2 hours somewhere completely new and not touch a single fish, but just feel the joy of being out somewhere new and trying something different. Which that's a hard thing to do. I think, especially when a lot of us have quite limited time, and that you've got all these external pressures or expectations perhaps of what you think that experience should look like. And really, at the end of the day, it's for you. It's like, did you enjoy being out, and did you have a chance to just get out and explore and be out in the wild? And so yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest one, is just that the broadening of those horizons, I think, is what that kind of comes down to.
Yeah, I love that answer. I would agree. When I first decided, to get into fly fishing, and I had a mentor who kind of helped me with everything, but then, he had to go to his life and I had to live my life, and it was like,
Hmm.
dude, how do I like, where do I go now? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know where to go fishing. Like, I marked the spots
Right.
on Google Maps where you took me, but like, that,
Yeah.
and I thought it was, such a secret spot. And then he's
Hmm.
like, well, download Trout Routes. And I was like, okay, cool, I will. And yeah, from there, it's like, it gives you that confidence to go out and explore. And like,
Yeah.
no one wants to trespass. No one wants to go out and do what they shouldn't do. So it gives you that confidence to know, like, I am in the
Absolutely.
right. I am doing things responsibly. I am doing this how I should be doing it. So yeah, it's a very good boost of confidence to know that you are doing things the correct way. And yeah, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
Because yeah, there's nothing more like nerve-wracking than showing up to a spot and being like, "Can I fish it? Can I
Hmm.
not fish it?" Like, you just constantly have that battle in your head, and then, "Oh, let me check. Oh, yeah, I can go in here. We're good."
Yep. Totally. Yeah.
It's
100%.
just definitely something that, yeah, is very nice. So for someone who has never used it, what would you say, and probably have a ton of answers to this, but what's the biggest value you could get from it besides what we just talked about?
Sure. So, I mean, just at a high level, Trout Routes is a mapping app to help you find trout fishing access and understand where, trout stream and river lines are, and then additional info around like public or private land data and things like that. So, at a very high level, it's just a phenomenal tool for you to help figure out where the trout are and then how you can get there. And I think once you accomplish those two things, I mean, you're 90% of the way there. So I think, above all, just understanding where those access points are, or, understanding where those boundaries are that you have the ability to walk up or downstream or get to the stream itself, is hugely valuable. But one, I think what also makes us so helpful is that we have taken the time to track down hundreds of different data sources for things that are perhaps more specific, but can be applied to a number of situations. So you have information like satellite imagery. You've got stream flow information, so you can understand what current river conditions are that's coming in, in real time. You've got topo map layers and elevation charts of those rivers, so you can see what the topography is, and get a sense of, if I'm going to hike in here, is this a flat 10-minute walk, or am I going to have to go up and over this ridge to get down to the water? And so if you're looking for more of that kind of detail and nuance, like I said, we've identified the right sources of that information and compiled it into a single platform. So you've got all of that information at hand. So you no longer need to be flipping through Google Maps tabs and USGS Stream Gauge websites and trying to find, other sources of truth. You can pull that all in, right in one spot, so you can help make some of those decisions not only more quickly but more confidently, so that you can be focused on figuring out, where the nearest fly shop is to get the up to date intel, or sorting your fly box to make sure you're packing the right flies and gear, and spending more time enjoying what you love about the river, which is fishing at the end of the day. So I think that's kind of the other just major point, is helping to consolidate a lot of that information, and then better inform anglers to be making those decisions.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I feel like, in our modern world and the times that we live in, like, anglers are able to really push where they're going these days. They can get into some extremely, extremely remote places. Is there that access to, get those offline maps downloaded and kind of know where you're going, and still use trout routes?
Yeah, absolutely. You can capture an awful lot of that data right to your device, so you know that especially if you are aware ahead of time. But certainly, I use offline maps here in the Driftless occasionally, because there are plenty of valleys and ravines that you cross the ridge, and all of a sudden, like, you're not going to get coverage again until you get to the other side. But I'm going to fish down in the bottom, so I know I'm not going to have coverage So yeah, you can absolutely grab that data and select the area that you want to download and then use your GPS signal to help you navigate. So it's like having that, map and compass in your pocket so you know exactly where you are at all times.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's good to know where you're at.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
always important. Put a little marker at the Jeep or the campground, and yeah, you'll get back there eventually if you just
Yeah.
follow the map.
Yeah. Yep. That's right.
That's awesome. So when you're out on the water, when you're out, exploring, what features do you tend to use like religiously? Like, okay, I'm going out. I know I'm using this, and that.
Sure. Especially here in Wisconsin, I am using the easement data an awful
Hmm.
lot. I think that's one of those sort of um, I don't want to say hidden functions because if you are looking at the public land info, it's fairly obvious. But sometimes, that easement will be marked on the farm road with a little postcard size white sign that says, private land. In a designated fishing easement for public use. And if you're driving down these roads, it's very easy to miss those. And so I found myself coming back to those bits of information to not only find some of that alternate access, but it's fairly easy to get on most of the trout water in the driftless. Most of the bridges are considered access points. Most of them will also have those easement access signs on them. Um, but it's also where I know a lot of other anglers are going to be or have been. And so if I'm looking for something maybe a bit more off the beaten path, um, I like to dig into some of that stuff because oftentimes it'll require that you hike through, along that strip of easement land to get down to the water. Um,
Those are the
there might,
best.
yeah, and I found some amazing water back there in part because I know that those fish are a little bit less pressured. But I also kind of like that challenge where you know, especially seeking out some new water. I think that's always a really cool opportunity. So I'm using that stuff a lot. Certainly using a lot of offline maps, to be sure I know like if I'm going to be in a spot that doesn't have coverage, I want to make sure I'm following that easement track so I stay within the easement section. But I have found myself using custom markers more and more lately as a way to kind of remember some of the things I'm encountering when I'm on the water, but then also to almost create a bit of that fishing journal element where, if I'm going to a particular spot frequently or if I want to get back to a spot that I've found while I've been out walking around, it's a really easy way for you to drop that information into a single source so I can always come back to it. And so I'm trying to be better about that. I know there are certainly things that I just don't take enough time to sit and remember. Um, but it is cool to be able to go back and say, last year around this time, where was I fishing? Oh, I remember going here, here, and here, and these are the flies that were working well. Or when I got to this spot, like this spot looked really good, but I should have walked 100 yards upstream because there was a better spot that I didn't have time to fish. So it's that kind of stuff that I think can really help when you're exploring and coming across these new things, and also a great way for you to learn and grow as an angler because it's a really simple and straightforward way for you to be able to take those notes and have it all kind of contained into a single destination.
Yeah, I love that answer. When I first started using Trout Routes, I used notes all the time, but I wasn't thorough in my notes. So then, like 2, 3 years later, I'd be looking back and it'd be like, "Cat, go here, good spot." And I'm like, "What? What?" Like,
Yeah,
okay,
I'm right there with you. I have definitely come across some old markers of mine where I'm just like, well, yeah, of course this is an access point because you dropped the pin right next to the access marker sign. Like what else? What else was I trying to convey? So
yep.
it is, of
Oh,
course,
that's
only
funny.
only as valuable as the amount of effort that you're willing to put into it.
Yes.
But
That's hilarious.
definitely
But
another
now
good
but nowadays,
reminder.
it's like, okay, I literally will put in what I used, what size fly, like, okay, BWO, this spot,
Hmm.
October, 1st, like, you
Yeah,
can get real detail, you can put photos in there, like, you
yeah.
can really give it that feel of literally a journal. I never thought about it like that, so that's a really cool call out on your part.
Yeah, and it's what's neat, and I'm also admittedly not very good about this, but you can color coordinate all those things. So, like,
Mhm.
maybe you want to say, and I've heard all kinds of different ways of taking advantage of that, but I know some folks that will use like one color for the whole season. So
Yeah.
everything in red is everything that happened in 2026. And so then you can go back and you can see like last year's color was this, and see how things have changed or not. I also know some folks that are using, different icon types for different kinds of information. It's really, like I said, totally up to you. But it's a neat way to have something at the end of the season to look back on, and um, especially like when you're confined to the tying bench in the dead of winter and you're starting to think about the next season, like do a little e-scouting and keep some of that enthusiasm alive when it might be -20 and there's 2 feet of snow on the.
Yes, yes, that is the best, yeah, when it's winter and you're just creeping around on the maps and you're like, "Oh, this spot looks good," and yeah, you throw that little
Yeah.
marker in there, "Go check this April 10th," and it's
Yeah,
like,
right.
"Alright,
Yep.
I'll be there. I hope I'll be
Exactly.
there," you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, for sure.
sometimes we'll change that up, but it's fun to do that, that e-scouting, that's a blast.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Alright, Eric, I got a couple fun wrap-up questions to hit your way. So,
Let's do
I
it.
ask everyone this, what is your go-to river snack?
Go to river snack. I don't eat a lot of candy. Um, Mostly because if I have it in the house, like I'll just eat the whole bag and it's like
Yeah,
then
me
it's
too.
gone. But I like throwing like the Halloween size Skittles bags in my fishing pack. That's always a nice pick me up. Or like a Reese's Halloween fun size. Throw a couple of those in there. Um, Other than that, I mean, I probably don't eat as much on the water as I should because I get
No, no, it's
distracted.
Yep.
And so, something like beef jerky is just an easy, like, crack the bag open, have a couple pieces. It'll give you a little bit of motivation. So I try to have a bit of that on hand with me too. But sometimes it's just, like whatever is in the truck or whatever happens to be on the counter that I can snag on my way out the door.
Yep, sometimes you never know what you're bringing. Yeah, you just grab
Yeah.
something random, piece of bread.
Yeah, right. Or like make a quick like half like folds peanut butter sandwich or like I don't know or whatever's in the pantry. That's
Whatever's in the
easy.
pantry. I've been leaning into I don't know if you're much of, like, a dried fruit guy, but I've been leaning into dried mangoes. Just put them in
Oh
a little
man,
baggie. Oof.
100%. That's
Yeah,
another one of those things that if we've got that in the house, that doesn't last more than a day or two.
yeah.
But yeah, dried mango, dried pineapple is another
Ooh,
favorite of mine. I like that one
okay.
too. Yeah,
I
that
can't say
one
I've
that's
ever
good.
ever tried that. Have you ever, like, tried drying your own fruit? Do you have, like, a dehydrator and stuff?
I haven't, although we've got some big garden plans this year, and we're trying to figure out some ways to do some extra preserving, and it's definitely been on the radar. So I'll have to give that a go. The other thing that I've been tempted to do with some of like last fall's venison is do some of my own jerky on the smoker.
Yeah,
I gotta figure that one out too.
dude.
But
Yes. Yeah, let me
that's
know. I've been making some jerky for a while, and it's
all
really fun.
right.
It took me a while to get it down. Those first couple batches, like, honestly tasted like dog treats. So,
See,
you gotta
that's
find
like
that balance.
that's what I think that's what's hanging me up is I know it's a bit of a process, and once I
Yeah.
figure it out, it'll be great. But like
Oh,
I don't know. I don't want to waste any of that good meat.
true,
But
true.
I'll
Yeah.
have to hit you up for a couple recipes,
Yeah,
and we'll see what
we'll
we can
chat,
do.
we'll chat. That's awesome. So, I'm excited to hear your answer on this one. If you were not with Trout Routes and, fly fishing enthusiast, what would Eric be doing?
Man, that's a good question. I, have always really been drawn to all kinds of outdoor recreation. I grew up doing a lot of canoeing, a little bit of kayaking. I got really into cycling when I was in college, and then coming out of college, I did a little bit of road bike racing, a little bit of cyclocross racing. That was always super fun. Did a ton of mountain biking in middle school and high school, and so I would have to say I would be somewhere in the outdoor rec space. I can't tell you exactly where that would be, but I wouldn't be surprised if it had something to do with bikes or something with paddle sports.
Nice. Nice, that's awesome, that's great. Alright, another fun one for you, and this is impossible, but one fly for the driftless, what are you picking?
Oh man, I actually I came a little bit prepared. Yeah, so we've been talking about tying flies. I've been messing around with this pattern right here. If you can see that,
Okay.
uh,
Yeah.
it's kind of a variation on just kind of a traditional jig head streamer. This is using some dumbbell eyes, but I fished a similar fly with a big cone head on it and this kind of peach and white color scheme all last fall, and actually based on a musky fool pattern. If you are looking for some inspiration, go hit up the musky fool YouTube, and you'll be able to track down that fly. But anyway, I tied a whole bunch of those last like midsummer, and then fished them all through August and September, and then I saw another pattern with more of a deer hair kind of head on it, and this is a bit of a Dahlberg diver looking thing, so it's kind of a mishmash of a bunch of different patterns. But
Dude.
we got this out on the not the West Fork, but the main stem of the Kickapoo earlier this spring. And I'm still kicking myself because we didn't tie it on until the last 45 minutes of the float because the other flies were catching fish, and so we didn't figure we needed to switch it up. But I tied this on, and I swear to God, it was like I was moving a fish with every cast, and I'm sure there was something going on with the weather and pressure and something like that. So I don't want to give all the credit to the fly, but this thing was wiggling and darting all over the place, and it just had him fired up. And so I've been chasing that high ever since. So I'm probably just going to be sticking to something like this for a good portion of this year, whether it's the right fly or not. I'm just going to keep. I'm going to keep at it.
Dude, I like that. Yeah, that thing looks pretty nice. I can see that moving some fish.
Yeah, 100%.
Just
So it'll be fun.
some big
Well, I'll have to report back. Maybe we'll do a season end recap or something like that. But
yes.
yeah,
I
it's
think
been fun.
that's a
It's
great
fun.
idea.
I mean, it's super simple. I think the color is cool too. It's that peach and white. It's something a little bit different that I don't think I see a lot of folks throwing. So I like to throw something a little bit different in the mix, and so yeah, we're gonna roll with that.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever like done anything with peach. I love that. That's a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
and who
gotta you
knows?
gotta
I
find
mean,
stuff that's
I
different.
I'm also a believer in it's often the fly that catches the angler and not so much the fish. But
Yeah,
I also know that if you tie something on that you believe in, you're going to pay attention to it and you're going to fish that thing harder
yeah,
than anything else in the box. So
yeah,
I say whatever inspires confidence is worth tying on and at least giving a shot.
yeah, yeah. I would 100% agree. All right, one more for you. Miss the eat or lose the fish at the net.
I was thinking about this afternoon, and I kept going both ways. I think I got to land on miss the eat, and the reason for that is losing the fish at the net is such a heartbreaker because it usually means that I did something totally wrong at the last minute, and I
Yeah,
can't stand that. And so
yeah,
if I miss the eat, I feel like I at least have another opportunity to throw that fly back in that fish's face and give it another shot, and not completely have blown up the spot. So I'll say, I mean, they're both heartbreaking experiences, especially if you really botch the hook set, or
oh yeah,
you're trying to streamer set and you forget what you're doing. You lift your hand
yeah.
sky high over your head. Um, but yeah, I'll say miss the eat in favor of maybe crossing my fingers and getting another shot at it.
I would agree with you. I thought about this a lot too, and yes, I think that's a great answer. And to your point, if you do a lot of, like switching it up, let's say you're nymphing, your dry fly, your streamer fishing, like, you can do all of that in one day easily. And you can
Hmm.
get stuck in your head if, let's say, you're streamer fishing for 2 straight hours and, in the
Yeah.
morning, and then you're like, okay, anything's going to be strip set. And then you switch over to the dry fly, and then it's like, first fish, you're like, oh,
Yep. It's
yikes.
yeah. It's a lot to be paying attention to
Yeah.
say the least. So it's um as much as I again will admit that I'm also guilty of changing flies up maybe too often or too frequently. Sometimes we introduce variables on ourselves that we don't necessarily need to, but
We do. We
that's
do.
all right. That's all
It's
right.
always good, yo. You gotta have those check yourself moments out there, and it's like, Why did I miss
100%.
that?" or "What did I do?" "Oh, I strip set on the dry fly." Yeah, that's gonna probably not work for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, great. This was a great conversation, Eric. Anything else you wanna chit chat about?
I don't think so, man. I appreciate having me on and getting to chat through, some of your experience as well, and I really appreciate the time. I'd say for folks that are interested, especially in some Trout Route stuff, definitely check us out. You can find us on all social platforms or troutroutes.com. And perhaps I'll throw in a quick plug for some of my fly tying endeavors.
Yeah.
It's weights and measures. You can find that on Instagram as well. And
Oh, I'm gonna
um,
grab that right
give
now.
that a look. I've got some things coming down the pipeline here shortly. I've been a little quiet on that front as we moved out here to the Driftless, but Weights and Measures Co. on Instagram is the best place to track me down there.
I just found you. Boom. Well,
Nice.
We follow a lot of the same people. Could you believe that?
That was shocking. Yeah.
Oh, sweet, man. This is sweet.
Yeah.
I'll have to check out your YouTube as well. Heck yeah.
Yeah, man.
Awesome. Well, great. I will let you get back to your evening. I believe it is 1-1, end of the second. So we got ourselves a hockey game, my friend.
All right. Let's get after it. Go wild.
Absolutely. I want to thank you for coming on too, Erik. I know it's never easy to do this with everyone's world. So thank you for taking the time to jump on.
100%. Appreciate what you're doing and appreciate the conversation tonight. And thank you again. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely.